The Rings of Power creators have once more come out with a new article, this time on contemporizing J.R.R. Tolkien's novels, because there is a real darkness right now in our modern world. So, first, it's again about what the show is about, so nothing really clear about the story again. And then Payne uh, says once more that the show explores the darkness of the current world, and that the biggest pressure on themselves was a pressure that we put on themselves because there's such a need for what Middle Earth can bring to our world. And then it goes on about economic darkness, social darkness, and challenges, and Middle Earth speaks to people in their soul. Again, I'm sorry to show this image. So it's quote again from Tolkien, a bit zoomed in now. Neither allegorical nor topical. So this is what Tolkien said about his own work. It isn't an allegory for the modern world. It isn't topical, so it isn't based on modern events, and neither should adaptations be based on modern events. The reason why Middle Earth speaks to so many people in their soul and their hearts is because um, of something called applicability. So people can see themselves in the characters, they can see themselves in a storyline. For example, people who have been in the wars, in the Second World War and the First World War, when Tolkien published his books, they might have seen themselves in a similar situation where at one point there was no hope, and when at last hope came, they rejoiced because they knew that the darkness or the enemy could be defeated. So it's something really weird that in our modern day and age that we need to adapt certain fantasy IPs uh, to our modern views so that we can see ourselves in them. But that's not why it's fantasy. It's called fantasy because it's another world. It's not based on real world things. It draws inspirations from them, which come to outing in the book, but they're not one-on-one transitions for each other. And there lies once again the problem for Rings of Power, because clearly they don't understand why Tolkien wrote what he wrote, and they don't understand what fantasy is, they don't understand what applicability is, and they don't understand what an allegory is, they don't understand what a topical story is. They don't seem to understand a lot about these books. So, again, you see, no matter what country you come from and what background you are from, what you will find is that Tolkien goes past all of these things and finds the inner heart and soul. We felt we needed to capture that special feeling, and I think Peter Jackson already did it in his trilogy. Maybe not everyone was happy with it because he changed several things. He changed several characters. He left characters out. He merged storylines, but he did it in a way that it was reasonably better for the story most of the times. So that's a huge difference between just projecting your own views onto Tolkien and then just slamming all these things in it, because Tolkien doesn't need that. And all around the world, people of different backgrounds enjoy Tolkien, not and they enjoy the Peter Jackson trilogy, not because it's made to reflect this world, but because it's fantasy and because people can imagine themselves in this world without necessarily being there. And that's the beauty of applicability. And again, goes for why they chose this era, of course. Tolkien stretched out the story but did not in detail, so that's about the appendices. And then it goes on about how they love the movies. Clearly, yeah, it's possible. It's likely because they're great movies. Um, but then again, they're not inflicting their own views to the fantasy world of Tolkien, what Rings of Power is doing. So yeah, what they're telling: Forging of the Rings of Power, Rise of Sauron, Fall of Numenor, and the Lost Lines between elves and men. So basically, um, towards the end of the Second Age, apart from the Forging of the Rings of Power, which was a bit earlier. So yeah, and it goes on again with the actors half elven, which is sort of a unique thing in the world, which is true, but it says nothing much about Elrond. Uh, then we get Bronwyn. She's a single mother who has a rebellious teenage son and a forbidden romance with an elf who is tasked with watching over the Southlands of Middle Earth. If you don't know what Southlands are, the Southlands are basically Mordor, so where Sauron had his base, which was established about 1000 of the Second Age. And then historically, her ancestors chose the wrong side. They chose evil over good, and she's trying very hard to redeem that. Well, with one person doing that, it doesn't seem like it's going to work. And I also don't know what they mean with historically, because it's not really specified in the Silmarillion which peoples actually fought with Morgoth. So the predecessor of Sauron, basically Sauron's boss. I mean, Sauron was a little kitty cat compared to Morgoth and what Morgoth did. Um, so do they mean the Southlands of the Dark Land, which was a continent that was formed in the Second Age? Because that would be weird, because it didn't exist at the point, because it's a result of the War of Wrath, when Beleriand sank into the sea, when the world was reshaped. So the peoples that fought with Morgoth aren't necessarily the peoples from Middle Earth. So I don't know what they mean with historically there. So she's resilient as well as nurturing. Okay, yeah, that's cool. So healing side, yeah, I mean that's the first interesting thing we hear about this character. She's a healer. So yeah, that's fine. It's okay. It's something about her character. But yeah, again, it doesn't say a lot. Okay, and then we get to the good part. Again, this part of her resonates with me as an activist because I'm a long-time activist for my country, Iran. Women in Iran and in many places in the world are at the forefront of the move towards democracy, freedom, and human rights. That's where I drew inspiration from. I mean, and that's great that you draw inspiration from them, but that doesn't make your character. And in the real life, these issues are very important. Let me stress that they're very important, they're needed. Uh, Human rights are extremely important, democracy, freedom as well. Uh, and in some countries, women are still oppressed. Maybe we think in our modern day and age that oppression is something that's in the past. It's not. And it's important that these issues are hammered on in real life, but they don't specifically need to be there in fantasy. So it's good that you draw inspiration from your own, but you don't need to put your whole person in a new character. That's not really the point of being an actor. So then we get the whole cast list again, and then when the series will start streaming. So in the US it's September 1st. Uh, in the UK it's September 2nd on Amazon Prime. I might be watching it for reviews, but I need to fit that into my schedule. So um, I'll see about that. Anyway, let me think about. Sorry. Let me know what you think about this article in the comments. And yeah, see you in the next one. Bye bye.